Well, the time has come. We're going to go ahead and we're going to drop this thing in today. And I'm having a friend come over and give me a hand. It's just a lot easier to get this stuff lined up. I could do it by myself, but, you know, when you have somebody to help you kind of move it while you're trying to get the dowel pins in, makes it just so much easier. So we'll get it rigged up here, and I'll probably just do a kind of a time lapse, or I'll probably speed up the video for the whole process of getting it in, just so you guys can see it, but you don't have to watch probably 45 minutes of boring video of dropping an engine in. So we'll put it up on a tripod and we'll go from there. Give it a go.
Hello?
Hey Jeff, it's Danny.
Danny, how are you?
Good. Quick question for you. The dowel pin, the upper dowel pin, do I need to move that?
You may. I don't know if that was a stick shift motor before or not. Stick shift motors and automatics are in different spots.
Okay, so all I need to do is pull the dowel. It's up too high. It's a C4 Transit I'm putting it on.
Oh, if it's up too high, yeah, you gotta put it in the lower hole.
Okay, all right. I'll pull it back and I'll get it out of there and move it. All right, that's what I need to know.
Oh, crap. I'm sorry, I pulled the pilot bushing. I didn't even think about it. I did the same thing to Eric Cox on 200. I built for him. I sold him a stick shift motor.
Okay.
The dowel pin's in the wrong spot. I
Yeah.
apologize.
You only have to move one, it looks like. Right? It's just the upper one. It's just the upper one, right? I only have to move the... Okay, all right. No problem. I'll get it out of there.
It's just the upper one.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
All right, bye.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Anything else? Give a holler.
Yep, will do. Thank you.
Hold on a second. Come here. Just come here. Sweat? No sweat.
All right, so I took a break for just a little bit, and I sent Sean home. Sent him off running. Anyways, we got the torque converter in. Just cinched those up and cinched up the rest of the bolts around the bell housing. Got the nuts on for the engine mount. The rest of this stuff, I'm just going to kind of put this stuff on here. There's no magic to it. We'll get back when the valve cover goes on and I got to rig up the throttle linkage for this thing, because that's going to take a little bit of fab to do that. The V8 linkage is a little higher than I'd hoped, so I'm going to have to build a bracket that probably angles it up, and then the cable will just kind of come around. So we'll figure all that out, though, and we'll film that. Okay, first problem we run into, which of course has to do with something that's different. Exhaust and starter, all that stuff, it bolted up like it belongs there, because it does. Ran into this problem. I assume I got to cut this right here. That's what I'm assuming. I'm just double checking with a couple of the admins on the Vintage 6 forum just to be sure, especially John. I know John's got one of these on his motor. So we'll probably just buzz that off with the Dremel and keep moving forward. But other than that, we do have a spacer here that's a gasket as well. Jeff recommends that. Let me get the number for that for you. Felpro 60716. It's update time. So far, so good. So we did go ahead and cut that. No problem there. It's got good clearance now. Don't need it anyways, because my throttle return spring is probably going to end up being over here somewhere. I may use this as the return, because I will add a return to it. I don't believe in just relying on the Sniper or the throttle body springs. I had it stick on the Phi-Tech on my truck, so I don't trust them. So we got the ball and socket on here already. I just did that. That looks pretty good. Here is the cable. I think I mentioned this before. Maybe I didn't. It's been so long now. I don't remember what I said, and I couldn't even remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So this will go here. I will put a bracket on top of the valve cover here. As much as it pains me to do so, I will. I will shorten this cable, and I'll put another bracket right here, and we will have this pull on the cable. That easy. So we just got to take some real careful measurements because you only get one shot at this. Although the sheath is almost long enough, if I screwed it up, I might have a long enough piece left over. But you cut it from this end because it slides into the ferrule right here. So what I'm going to do is first figure out what the throw is on this. So this will tell me how much cable I need. And it's only, you know, it's really only a couple inches. That'll kind of tell us where the bracket wants to be over there and how long the cable needs to be and all that. So we're gonna hook this up here just like this. Of course, I'm doing this one-handed as usual, and get this over to here. And, you know, we're just going to simply, I'll hold it with my other hand when I have it, and I'll be able to see how much throw that is. Pretty easy. That's going to, for sure, tell me where I can put this bracket at right here. We'll do that first. Then we know the distance is good. Then we'll do that bracket over there. So I went and got ahead of myself again without videoing it, but sorry. This one we're putting a riv nut in here. So these are rivet nuts. Or riv nuts, it's a trade name for them, and it's a tool that I have that crushes this sleeve nut in here and literally rivets it to the inside of the valve cover. So we drilled that out. So this will have the bracket right here for this side of the accelerator cable. And the second one is going to go right here where this black dot is right there, and it's going to come out this way. Same kind of angle bracket deal for this accelerator cable right here. So, you know, this is just time consuming, and there's nothing really special about it. But it does take a little bit of thought, you know, and by the way, I can't use a riv nut on this one because I'm looking at it. That's right where the push rod and the rocker arm is, and that thing goes down in there like, you know, 3/8 of an inch. So it'll hit the rocker arm. I'm going to have to put the bolt facing out this direction. I'll probably have to put a little bit of sealant on this one too because it'll probably leak. But I'm going to fab up these brackets and I'm going to paint them. So I'm just going to mock it all up now, get it all assembled, see how it looks. If everything's good, then we're going to put sealant on it and make sure we don't have any leaks later on. All right, and here's the bracket fabricated. Nothing more than just some regular old angle iron. Got my hole marked there, and I'm just checking this out. I'll be able to adjust the angle, which is good, and there's the V8 linkage. I've just got a 1032 or a 1024 screw in it right now just to make it really easy. They have a pin that goes in there. But yeah, this is lining up. I've got the offset correct to line up with the throttle. The offset meaning how far out I am from the valve cover. So we're ready to punch a 1/4 inch hole in the side of the valve cover there and put a bolt in it. And that should do it. Then we're going to have to cut the cable after that. But I do have enough travel here with this. You can't really tell, but because I'm doing this one-handed. But yeah, the cable only needs to move like 1.5 inches, so there'll be plenty of travel there. Okay, so here's what we got. There's the bolt on the inside in the push rod relief. I checked there should be enough room. If not, you know, I can get a real low profile fastener in there if I have to. My bolt's a little bit long. I did put a washer behind it, which is actually good because it gives it a little bit more space offset, which is good. So this looks like this will work. Obviously this is all mocked up right now. We're going to get it set up and then I'll paint the brackets and all that. But this looks like this is going to work. So let me get it on there, and I'll probably put a couple of bolts just to stabilize the valve cover, and we'll check it out and see function and everything else, see if it looks good. Okay, so here's what we got. We're ready to cut this thing. So the ferrule on this end slides off, okay? And this length here is not all horribly critical. You know, I don't want it too long, but I don't want it too short. I think I'll start with it long, and if I need to shorten it up, I can. So I'm going to mark it like right in this area. And then you can just cut this with a regular old pair of dikes. It's not difficult at all. Or, excuse me, diagonal cutters. I need to cut it with some diagonal cutters. So one note on that, do not cut it with the cable in it. That would be foolish. Pull the cable out of the sheath first, because your cable will be too short if you do that. So make sure you don't make that mistake. All right, here's what we got. It's a little bit hooby-dooby, but it'll work. Okay, so that's it, part throttle. And if I shove it all the way, it's a little hard to do one-handed, but it does, in fact, trip the kick down there. Sorry, this is just makes for awful video, but that looks like that'll work. Of course, the valve cover's moving a little bit now because it's not bolted down. But I think that I think it looks like it's in pretty good. It looks like pretty good geometry. I think that'll work. I'm just gonna check the throw one more time from inside the car. I may throw another bolt in here just to keep it from rotating while I'm doing that, and then take those brackets off and get them painted, because it's just raw steel right now. Well, I'll tell you, it's been an extremely long day. They always are, and my recommendation to you, if you're learning to do this, when I was young and dumb, I'd have fired this thing up tonight. I had fired it up tonight and tried to break it in, and I would have had some problem, I'm sure, and I would have gotten very frustrated. We're going to save it for tomorrow. The only things that are left, we need to put the distributor in, but we need to prime it first before that. We need to fill the cooling system. I don't have any coolant. I've got to go pick some up tomorrow morning before we do it. So that's all that's left. I'm going to go around tomorrow morning and I'm going to check everything. I got the vacuum lines hooked up and everything. I need a T for the PCV. That's a problem. Right now I'm going to tee it in. Well, actually right now it's not hooked up at all, and I'm going to probably start it without it. Once we get it broken in, I'll play around with teeing it into the power booster. You really shouldn't do that. You shouldn't, but I might. I may very well do it. I might put a filter. I've got some 3/8 filters. I may put a filter in there to catch any crap from getting, because what you don't want is it going back into the booster. So, what else? I think that's it. I'm just pretty worn out. Not 20 years old anymore. This used to be easy. So we put the trickle charger on it and we'll give it a go in the morning. It's a new day here in sunny Southern California. And something I didn't mention yesterday, I'm not totally happy with this yet, but I'm going to clean it up. I did make a return spring bracket for it last night. I couldn't think of a better way to do it, so this is what we ended up with. I'm not real happy with it, but I'll probably round this out and make it look a little bit nicer. I probably could have used a smaller piece of flat stock, but this is just what I had. It'll work for now. We'll come back and clean that up. So we're going to go out and hit O'Reilly's and pick up some coolant and a few little odds and ends. I need to get a flat air base for it, air cleaner base. I've got a drop base and I've got a raised base in my stash, but I don't have a flat one. So I'm going to see if I can find one. If not, I can order it and have it here in a few days. Not super critical. I probably won't even have the air cleaner on it for break-in anyways. And I need to pick up some vacuum tees. I'm going to play around with the PCV at some point. But other than that, this thing's pretty much ready to fire. Okay, so here's what we're going to do right now. I filled it with coolant. I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. The air is still kind of coming out of it. I want to get as much coolant into this thing as possible, because you don't have the luxury with a cam break-in to be screwing with coolant levels and idle and trying to fill it. We're just going to fire it and fill it, and it'll take what it'll take. I hooked up the distributor. I just got it into top dead center number 1 for sure. I just double checked. I put my finger in there. I could actually feel the intake valve open, which is pretty nifty. So let me see. We're gonna pre-program the sniper right now. So that should be pretty easy, and we'll film that. I'm going to keep the handheld outside of the car. I'm going to be here. I'm going to have somebody help me when I can find a friend to fire it while I'm out here under the hood. And we'll put the camera up on a tripod, and you know, so you can see the whole thing. But we're getting really close. All right, let's program this thing. So the distributor's grounded. I'm not sure if it makes a difference or not, but I just want to make sure the distributor was plugged in. We'll get this all pre-programmed. That way I prime it, I drop the distributor, we start it. I'm going to go through the setup menu on here. I think this is a 55849. I want to say it's not the Super Sniper. It's just a standard 2300. So turning the key on should not make the fuel pump run. As a matter of fact, I'm going to plug it in. I unplugged the fuel pump to prime it because I did flush out the line. Flushed out the fuel line. So let me see. I got some keys here. Let's turn the key. It would help if I connected the battery, wouldn't it? Battery is hot. Turn the key on. Okay, we have a screen, so let me make sure you guys can see that. Sort of. Let me improve this if I can for you. Okay, that should be good. So you'll notice the fuel pump, you didn't hear the fuel pump run. It's because there's no software in it. It's not programmed yet. There's no tune. So we're going to go to Wizards. I'm doing this off of memory now, which is probably a bad idea, but it's a lot better than the last time I fumbled through it. And we're going to go down to 550, 849, 850, 851, 2 injector, 2300. That's what this is. The Super Sniper is a 4 injector, just so you know. Okay, next. This number of cylinders would be 6 in this motor. Next, displacement. We're going to clear that out. We're going to put it to 200. Save. Next, target idle speed. I'm going to set it a little high right now. We'll set it at about 760 is fine. We'll lower it later. I want it a little bit high to start with, although it should not idle at all. We need to fire it up and run it. Okay. Stock mild cam is fine. Here, oops, I skipped over something. See, I accidentally hit the button twice. We have a Hyperspark distributor. Next. Wide open throttle ignition timing for right now. I'm just going to put some base settings in here. It's going to have a 2D table, 3D timing table when it's done. But for right now, we'll just say wide open, and we're going to set it at 32 degrees. It's pretty conservative. Next. And those are not. I guess it only lets you set wide open throttle. Save. Next. Start. Okay, so it's probably gonna have me. Oh, it already ran the fuel pump, so it's telling me to cycle the ignition. I heard a prime shot, and the fuel pump turned off. So that's good. Multi-gauges. And I'm going to do a few other settings on here while I'm here. I want to make sure I get... I'm going to check the AFRs, and I'm going to do all that, but I want to make sure I set up the fans in case it gets hot. I want the fans to run. So we're going to go back. Tuning. Basic. I'll go back to that in a second. System. Outputs. Fan 1 on temperature. It's at 190 and 180 right now. We'll leave it there for right now. For break-in, it's going to be very conservative. We'll bump those up. Eventually, the auto-cool controller does all the work. It's never kicked on. I usually set it at 200. It never gets that hot, but we'll just leave it conservative right now. Let's see. 2 injectors. That all looks good. Actual fuel pressure 60. That looks good. That's the actual system design pressure, not the actual pressure. Ignition setup. Reference angle should be 57.5. That's correct. The main rev limiter, I'm going to take this down to, I don't know, right now 5,700 or something. You can go in, by the way, if you noticed earlier, you can save it. It's a lot easier than moving that slider bar. That thing's a joke. Okay, inductive delay should be 100 microseconds. We're not going to change anything there. Static timing, we're going to do that later. Once we get it started and running, we'll worry about setting the timing. It's going to be off a couple of degrees with the jig that sets this thing in, but that's okay. We'll get it set. We're not going to worry about trying to set the timing during cam break-in. It'll be close enough. It's more important to keep this thing up at RPM. Okay, so we'll close that. Let's see. Basic spark. We're looking at 15 degrees at idle, 36 at cruise. You know what? I'm gonna back this down. I'm gonna go really conservative here. Let's clear this out. Let's make this 27, maybe 28 degrees. Save, and we'll set this at 32. Save. I'm going real conservative right now. Crank ignition timing, 15's a little bit hot. I'm going to set that probably 12, especially for fresh motor. I'm going conservative. Edit has been made that requires ignition power to be cycled. Okay, we'll do that right now. I usually wait 4 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever, and then turn it on. It's going to prime again, so just be cautious of that because it will flood this thing pretty quick. You don't want to wash the cylinder, so that's the last time I'm going to turn it on. See if there's anything else in here that we want to play with. Let's look at the AFR settings. I know it's in here. Oh, basic fuel. Basic fuel, target AFRs. Target idle AFR, make that 13.6 for right now. Cruise and wide, that's fine for right now. That's fine. I'm more concerned at idle. 13's a little rich. That's a little too rich. I want it to be rich because that's better for overheating reasons. It's safer. You're not going to ping. It's just better to be a little on the rich side, but we don't want to go overboard. 13, so that's too rich. That's too rich. So home and multi-gauges. That's showing us our vitals. Obviously, we're in a stall state. It can't initialize the O2 sensor because it's not running. Coolant temperature showing is 77. That's about right. 12.3, 12.4 on the battery voltage. That's fine with everything lit right now. We can also go in and look at our sensor, home. So you can't use your finger and you just want to do that, but you can't do that. You have to use the little stupid thing they give you. I think monitors, initial startup. So this is showing me everything, showing 101 kPa, which is atmospheric pressure. Again, the IAC is at 72%, 12.4 volts. Our TPS is showing 0, so that's good. There's no issues there. So if I move this throttle, we should see TPS. We do. It's showing up to 90%. That may need an adjustment, but that's fine for right now. We'll deal with that later. 90 is a little low. So that's good. I think we're just about ready to fire this thing. So like I said, put that on vitals, and then when it boots back up, it'll come to that. Now, last time, I don't think I did a very good job of showing this, so I want to do a better job today. So Holley gives you this, and specifically for this distributor, they give you the little extension guy, this little black 3D printed extension. What this is meant to do is to reference your distributor for you, so you don't have to guess where to drop it in. As long as you're at top dead center, 0 degrees on number 1, you'll be able to align it. So what you do is you drop it in and you get your oil shaft to line up and you get your gear lined up and get it all the way in there. Get it dropped in and get it kind of approximately where you know you want your number 1 plug to be. In this motor, it should be pointed kind of down and out. That's just where number one, it doesn't matter. You can put it wherever you want. It's just that's where it's supposed to be. Supposed to is relative. But once you do that, then you can rotate the housing. Now, normally that would adjust your timing. Now, Holley came up with this cool thing where you can see how the rotor fits in here. You assemble these two pieces together, and it's got a notch in the bottom of it. And that notch lines up with the notch in the distributor. Okay? You set that on top. You'll notice it's sitting proud of it. You rotate it. Rotate the housing, not the distributor, not the shaft, but the housing. You rotate the housing until it drops in just like that. Okay? Do that again. Line it up on the rotor. Rotate the housing. Boom. That's it. You lock it into place. This little notch right here up here means that's number one. That's where your number one plug wire should be on the distributor, because you could still have your order off on top of the cap. Don't do that. Make sure that you get number one lined up with this little notch on the plastic. You'll see it there. So there's a little notch on the plastic here, and there's a little notch down here. This little notch down here, housing. This little notch right here, reference for number one. And like I said, you'll see I've got a yellow mark on mine already that says that's where number one needs to be. All right, let's get this party started. I'm a lone guy today. Not going to have any help, so do it the old school way. Prime it one more time. Almost 50 psi, so I think we're good. Stab this distributor. Oops. This break-in lube has a very interesting smell to it. I'm going to put a little bit of break-in lube on the cam gear. You should with a new one. So I'm going to go grab some. This is just a little bit of assembly lube. I have the fan on, the blower fan blowing at the radiator. It's always kind of a good idea. Let's see how much this fights me or not. Of course, the oil pump shaft is not in the right place. So, because what's happening, and I know you can't see it, but what's happening is the rotor's turning too far. The other two teeth I can't get to, so I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, because that's about how far off it is. I'll turn the oil pump shaft 90 degrees. This is just going to be one of those ones where the freaking oil pump shaft fights you. Alright, we got it close enough. There we go. That should be very, very close. Alright, put the lockdown on. Just make sure you get it all the way in. If you don't get it all the way in, you're going to be hurting. Put a little bit of tension on it, not much. Just so you can still turn it. Use your cap. Alright. So leave that on there. Make sure you got it good. It's lined up. Lock the distributor down. That's it. Done. These Hypersparks, they don't, it's not like an MSD distributor, which is funny because it's MSD is exactly what it is, same brand. And what's interesting about them is they don't have the quarter turns like the Pro billets do. This is, you got to screw an Allen key all the way down, and they're not captured, so they'll fall out of the cap. Makes no sense to me. Plug wires. Double check your firing order. Mine are all pretty much where I left them, so I know where they go. Just double checking anyways. Forget to plug in the coil. I've seen people try and start cars for 20 minutes with that disconnected. And of course, don't forget to connect the Hyperspark distributor pickup. It should start. Soft fuel spray. Here we go. I turned the throttle screw to keep the RPM up. 2,500. 309. Picking up temp pretty quick, too fast, but it could be, it's probably air. We'll see if it clears up. If it doesn't, we're going to shut it down. Taking coolant. 197, we'll see how it does. It's still got air in it. Voltage is good, 14 volts. Oil pressure is about 43, 45. Valve cover's leaking. Varying the RPM. You want to take it 25, 2000, 23, give it a few minutes at each. Changes the splash pattern. We got about 8 more minutes. Sitting about 208. To be expected for a fresh motor. They run a little bit hotter because they're tight. Got just the smallest oil leak, and it's underneath the fuel filter or fuel pump plate. And I don't know if it's a plate or if it's leaking at the pan right underneath. It's hard to tell. Minor, though, very much. Yeah, it's a fuel pump plate. I can fix that later, though. I don't know why it's leaking. It shouldn't. So 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we'll probably go 20 to 25. I'll shut it off somewhere between 3:30 and 3:35. We're at the 3:30 mark. Let's give it another couple minutes. I'm texting back and forth with Jeff. He said 20 minutes. Said 20 minutes is fine, so I let it idle. He said don't let it get over 215. We got up to 210. The temp's coming right down. 201. So I shut it down. Oil pressure is concerningly low. Now I talked to Jeff, and it could be a number of things. It wasn't so low that the lifters weren't rattling, and I still had 5 to 10 psi. That's a little low for my taste at idle, but it could be a number of things. It's break-in oil. It's hot. It's very hot. It was sitting at 210. There's no air moving past the oil pan to cool it. You know, it could be a lot of things. So I don't think that we have a problem, but we're going to monitor it closely and let it cool down, and we'll get it fired back up. But the cam break-in Cam break-in's good. All right, so a couple things. I did talk to Jeff. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not. And we think that the oil pressure is probably okay. It's pretty low, though. And it could just be the way this thing's clearanced. It is 1030 break-in oil. It's pretty thin. But I was seeing... I shut it off so quick, I don't really know. But it was less than 10, maybe right around 10. That's pretty low, somewhere between 5 and 10. And that's just really concerning. But, he brought up a point, 20 minutes of break-in. It was on for 25 minutes about. And no airflow to the oil pan. You're running it hard and everything's tight. The oil gets hot. But he said run 1550 in it. It's hard to say right now. It's hard to say. What I want to do is let it cool down and check it again and fire it up. Now I went to go fire it up and the sniper's dead. I'm getting no ECU response at all. And what I suspect, this is my opinion, but it's based on some science and experience both. Ran fine. You have the Venturi effect. It keeps the unit cool. What happens sometimes with the surface mount stuff, if you're into electronics, look up surface mount components. That's how these are all built now. Sometimes what happens with them is, you're drawing all that air through it. The unit will actually be cold even though the engine's hot. Now, as soon as you shut it down, that heat soaks right into it. And it can cause components to have an open connection because something warps. If there's a cold solder joint, it doesn't take much heat for things to separate. And all of a sudden you have a bad connection in the ECU. So I'm letting it cool down for a while here. I had the fan blowing on it for a little bit. We'll see if it works after it's fully cooled down. If it does, then I got a pretty good idea what's going on. If it still doesn't work, I'm going to call Holley, see what they have to say. I've done all the regular troubleshooting stuff. Look, the handheld comes on. Obviously, it's got power. There's no fuse blown. It's getting power. The fuel pump's not priming, so obviously the ECU isn't doing its job. So just wait for the airplane to go over as usual. At this point, I'm probably gonna have to make a phone call to them tomorrow. I'm very skeptical. I just know how these things go. I had 2 bad ECUs on my Phytech, both heat related. They wouldn't act up till they were hot. This is either going to come back or it's not going to. And I like I said, I checked the wiring and everything, and there's no problem there. The fuel pump doesn't prime, so that means it's not working. This says there's no response. All right, so here's where we're at. I did let it cool off for a while, and couldn't get the sniper to boot back up. And I was on the phone with my dad, and he and I were talking. He's an old school hot rodder too. Maybe we'll introduce him at some point. But anyways, he and I were BSing on the phone, and I had the key on for maybe a minute, and all of a sudden it booted up and it made connection, and the fuel pump primed. So something's up with that ECU. I don't trust it. I don't want to drive it anywhere until I figure out what's going on there. But then I started it up, let it warm up again. Oil pressure came way back up to around, 50 PSI and kind of slowly worked its way back down to about 30. I'm going to run a heavier oil in this thing. The clearances are a little bit loose in it, which is fine. We'll probably put some VR1 2050 in it for the next 500 miles or so, and then we'll change it again. If you're a synthetic person, by the way, don't run synthetic in it right away. I do like synthetic, and I think synthetic's great, but it doesn't allow things to break in properly. You really need to I'd get a few thousand miles on it before you drop synthetic into it. Because I do like Royal Purple HPS. It's high zinc synthetic oil, and for longevity, definitely is a good thing. But you don't get the right wear pattern on things if you dump synthetic in it right after break-in. Jeff recommends just leaving the break-in oil in there. I don't like how low the oil pressure got. Of course, we got a lot of heat into this motor doing the break-in, so the oil pressure was around 10 psi, which is scary. But anyways, so the sniper did come back online, and I shut it off and turned it on probably 5 or 6 times after that, and it worked perfectly every time. So it's probably got some issue, but I'll call up Holley and I'm going to see what they have to say. But anyways, Other than that, everything seems absolutely fine. The tune was way off. I've got a different file in it now. Like I said, I got a friend of mine. I've said previously that took the file and worked his magic on it and set up a better timing table. And he's got files that work for this motor with the cam that's in it. And so he just tweaked it a little bit here for my California gas. So that should all be good. I'm going to drop that file in it today. We'll get it started back up, and we might take it around the neighborhood, just short trip, just to, like I said, I don't want the thing to die on me and have to get it towed home. So we'll probably break this one off here, and if I find out anything from Holley, it'll be in the next update. But other than that, we're going to get the rest of this cleaned up. We'll get the hood back on it. I got a new air filter coming. This is just, I threw this on here. It's out of my stash. It'll work for now. The hood's not going to close though. This is a raise base. This has got like a 1/2 inch raise to it, I want to say. And I ordered a flat base for it. And I ordered a 2-inch element. I think this is a 2.5. This might be 2.5. I ordered a 2-inch element for it. So we just get enough clearance to get the hood closed, because it won't with this. So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up.